Good evening again, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of DMs with PM. Of course, every Tuesday at 6 p.m., we come to you live on Facebook, YouTube, and not forgetting your favorite radio stations, Power FM, Star FM, WeFM, GBN, Fusion FM, Vibes FM. And as always, it is an absolute pleasure to be back with you, where we get into another interactive hour with our Prime Minister, Dickon Mitchell. Well, of course, you know, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of updates to give to you as well. And all we ask is that you share the live and give other folks the opportunity to be part of the program. A little later on, we also accept your calls, so stay close and stay tuned for that. We will let you know when it's time to do so. All right, so you know this hour goes by pretty quickly, so we're not going to waste any time. PM, good evening and welcome back to the show.
Good evening and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back, and special good evening to all of our listeners and those who are tuning in via the various platforms on social media.
So before we do anything else, let me say thank you so much. Now this is what we call style. I love the DMs with PM. We have the Grenada flag, and of course we have the what you call this, the dove and the agouti. So we have the coat of arms, yes. So it's a really good look. So tell us about this. Are we going to have more merch coming soon, or is it just for me?
Well, this one is just for you, but we certainly are looking at, we've been experimenting a little. Over Christmas, I think the team got samples of various pieces of merchandise, so we're hoping that we can settle on a color. The blue looks nice, it matches your dress. Nice. But we'll see what's the favorite color, and then we will certainly try and have some merchandise. So we can say thank you to our sponsors, the radio stations that carry us, all of the supporters and persons who call in, our sponsors, and then to the general public. Hopefully we get a chance to be able to have some merchandise and get some funds to cover the cost of the show.
Agreed. Well, we are 27 days into January already, so how have you been?
I've actually caught a little bug, I think, over the last couple of days. I'm not sure if it's allergies or the cold or a combination of both. My voice might be a little huskier than it normally is. So if I'm not sounding as clear as I should be, that's the reason. But otherwise, I'm pretty good.
No, you probably need some more of your favorite meal, more chicken soup. That will definitely help. That's what old people say, at least.
Yes, I'm trying to do that. I probably need to rest a little, but otherwise I'm good.
So we're not stressing you too much? Always the stress level where...
No, I mean, the stress comes with the job. You have to have stress to be motivated and to get things going. But I think I don't generally get sick, so this is just a little phase that I'm sure I'm going to get over quickly. So hope you'll be up and running soon again. All right, well, today we had a press briefing, of course, and the conversation was around infrastructure. But one of the things coming out of it, I think one of the journalists asked, and you gave a pretty good explanation and, you know, information on it. And I think for those who probably missed it this morning, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on it in terms of, you know, work ethics in Grenada and, you know, our skill set, etc. Because I think this is something that requires a lot of attention. Myself, and I'm sure numerous other Grenadians probably have, you know, incidents where work ethics come into question. You go into public places, you go to workplaces, and, you know, sometimes the attitude is like, I don't want to be here, but I'm here, so whatever you get today, you're going to have to deal with it, you know. And it's almost like some people would like to be paid but don't necessarily want to do the work. So what are your thoughts, and how much more can you elaborate on what you said this morning? Well, I think it starts with accountability. I think for any supplier who's providing a service to the government or to a private individual, you've been paid to do so. It's not for free. And the price is agreed. You know, the price is not being forced upon you. If you think the price is not sufficient, then you don't take the job. So the government faces a challenge where, you know, millions and millions of dollars. I mean, the Ministry of Infrastructure has the largest capital budget. Almost every year it's probably in excess of $150 million to $200 million. And most of the work goes towards local contractors. So whether it's roads, drains, you know, box drains, slipper drains, road construction, retaining walls, you name it, schools, police stations, etc. All of this is taking place, and in many instances we are significantly challenged by the quality of work, how long it takes to get the work done, and a general sense of not caring about the public. And in a sense, we've seen a lot of the public works that are taking place, and despite even my efforts sometimes to just have basic things like signage to warn pedestrians or the public, or to let people even know what's happening, you simply don't have it. And it's one of the challenges that I would admit has started to frustrate me a little over the last, say, 12 to 18 months, where it doesn't appear as if contractors, or at least some of them, take the government's work seriously, take the public funds seriously. I've had to go to sites myself where contractors have specifications. They know the specifications, they start working with the specifications, and in the middle of the work they choose to abandon it and do something else, and then it compromises the integrity of the work. Oftentimes you then have to redo the work, which means it's more costly, and the contractors themselves lose money on the jobs because they're building against the specifications, and then you have to ask them to redo it at their cost, and then they don't want to do so. So it's something that we have to take as a nation seriously, and it's a culture that we have to begin to change. If not, it's not me that's going to suffer, it's not the government, it's the country at the end of the day. So I'm hoping as we begin to talk about this, it is not necessarily just to criticize, but to basically point out to people that if you do value for money, it means more things can be done in the country. It means less wastage, more efficiency, and the contractor's reputation is enhanced at the end of the day, and obviously it gives an opportunity for him or her to get more work.
What do you suggest we do, though? I notice, of course, you've had some retreats with different sectors, the police, etc. Do you think that is one area maybe other businesses should use to get the employees up to speed?
Well, no, training, absolutely. I mean, employers are at the end of the day responsible for helping to train the employees. You can't hire and just assume that because you hire they have the skill set or the attitude or the right culture to do what is required. So I'll speak, specifically to infrastructure. Some of the things we've had to do with small contractors in particular, just basically help them navigate the formal business process, help them to register their businesses, help them to register for NIS, for tax. We've taken a policy that if you don't have a tax registration number, you're not going to do business with the government. Now, oftentimes they see this as problematic or troublesome, but it's to help them. If you have a tax identification number, if you have a bank account, it means you can put your money in the bank can see the money you make. So when you go to them for a loan or advance or overdraft, they actually have your records because everything is going through the bank, and it becomes easier for them to actually finance you. If you don't have that, when you go to the bank or the credit unions, they will not lend you money. If you have a paper trail, it also allows us as the government to assess your capacity, how much jobs you've gotten in the past, whether you have the capacity to take on a job that you're doing. So that's just a simple example of how we try to help them. Many of our contractors can't estimate. In many instances, we have to get people to help them prepare the bills of quantities because they're simply not used to doing it, so they don't manage their monies properly. The Ministry of MIT has even helped in some instances by asking a riser to assist some of the contractors with cash flow. Because the way construction works, you've got a contract, you've got to start. And most contractors don't have any sort of cash to start in the beginning. So you'd find the credit unions will give them an advance on the strength of the contract with the government so that they can mobilize, they can bring the workers on site, they can get tools, equipment, etc. So those are some of the things we've been trying to do to get our contractors to, in a sense, be able to navigate the difficult space. In some cases, it is working well. In others, you still have to be a bit more patient. You still have a lot of patience. You still have to have a lot of trial and error. But we certainly believe with the significant amount of work that's taking place, that there will be improvement over the period of time. And within the Ministry of Infrastructure, we also have to be able to hold the contractors accountable. I think we've had a culture where people are afraid to call it poor work or poor workmanship, or afraid to hold people accountable for reasons I am not clear on yet. But it is something we are also working on so that people understand that we have to have value for the money spent.
And, just to elaborate a bit more, like we said, infrastructure is definitely the conversation today, and it's really the foundation of, a country's development. What are some of the major projects, government has been focusing on, and how are they progressing so far?
Well, there's a lot. So I'll perhaps speak about the schools, because I think that's one of the key things. There's been ongoing rebuilding and renovation of schools throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, and it's all over. Obviously, in the case of Carrick-on P.T. Martin, because of Hurricane Beryl, we have to rebuild and renovate most of the schools, and we've been able to do so successfully. There is one school to be built, the Dover government, which was completely destroyed, so that's one of the outstanding ones to be dealt with. Currently in St. Andrews, the St. Andrews Anglican Primary School is being constructed. In St. David's, the St. David's Catholic Secondary School is under construction. Work has just commenced on the Florida government. Work is going on the Calais government. So a number of other schools we intend to start work later on this year, we hope, on St. Giles in St. Andrews. So school infrastructure has been one area we focused on significantly. The police infrastructure is one. We've obviously have a new police headquarters on the Caranage that was relocated. Grenville Police Station was relocated, a new building found and remodeled to have the police there. We intend to demolish that current site because it's on a water table next to the sea. Union Police Station, that has to be renovated. Work is currently ongoing on the what is called the Victoria Hotel to have the police relocated there. We have to do the Coast Guard barracks as well because that was burnt and has not been repaired since. So St. David's Police Station, we renovated the St. Paul's Police Station. So there's significant work going on in terms of security and the police at the prisons as well. We are in discussions about building a new prison. In the meantime, we are doing upgrade work to keep the facility as safe as possible given the age of the prisons. We have a package of bridges, particularly in St. Patrick, because St. Patrick has borne the brunt of significant damage as a result of flooding and heavy rainfall in November of 2023, and then we had Hurricane Beryl in 2024. So from Snell Hall to Montfendu to Mades, all of these bridges have to be redone, so we're working on that. Significantly, the Sotez Coastal Breakwater Project, that's almost becoming an emergency. We have lost significant coastline in Sotez. The last time I saw the studies, it said about 50 meters of the coastline had disappeared, and I'm talking here between where the coast was and where the sea was. So the sea has moved inward by about 50 meters. The MP for St. Patrick West pointed out to me it's probably now about 70 meters. We are getting funding from the Caribbean Development Bank to do this, so we are hoping that we can accelerate the final approval process and have a contractor in place, hopefully by the first quarter of 2026, to address that situation. The Marquee Bridge is another bridge that we are looking to rebuild. So most of our bridges, unfortunately, are in many instances single carriage bridges, which means one vehicle can only pass at a time. And given the amount of traffic we have and the size of the trucks and so on, we need to modernize most of our bridges and get them to be double lane bridges that can accommodate two vehicles passing. So there's a general approach to try and upgrade and modernize all of our bridges over time. In terms of road maintenance itself, I indicated we have procured a pothole truck. I think the potholes is a major challenge I think all of us accept, and we have to modernize the way in which we repair our potholes. We are hoping the truck will be here latest by the end of February. There's been some delays in shipping and so on, which should take a modern approach to pothole repairs and should accelerate the process because we can actually drive the truck around and fix the situation. And there are about 5 packets of main roads that we're hoping to start construction on from as early as April. Morris Bishop International Airport all the way to the Westall Point area. And then from that same Westall Point to Old Westall Junction all the way to St. Paul's Police Station. Another package involves from the Decol gas station roundabout in Tempe all the way to Monkuma. On the west coast, we have to do that area between the entrance to Mount Granby, Mount Nesbitt, and Guave, which has been like this impassable for the last perhaps 20 or 30 years. It's called the Mabuya area. I'm not sure if that's the legitimate name for it, but it's a Mabuya Road. We have to repair this. On the west coast as well, between Mount Moritz and the entrance to the Seoul area, there's significant failing of the road in that area, and we are going to also seek to repair this aspect as well. And then obviously from Burns Point to the Republic Bank roundabout, which is essentially the Grand Dance Main Road, we're going to have to redo the entire road as well. So we are hoping to have much larger contractors who are able to finance, design and build the roads themselves. That's the idea here, is that they will only get paid after the roads are complete, as opposed to the traditional approach where we pay as we go along. And then finally, because this piece is important, the road in Willis, that was a project that was part of the Feeder Roads project, which was assigned to Hanover Construction. I think 10 or so roads were assigned to them. Unfortunately, the company has not been able to deliver on this, and they have since ceased operations in Grenada. We have tried to work with 3 local contractors to form a joint venture company to actually commence reconstruction of the road. Unfortunately, one of the partners died, and so that has further delayed the start of work there. We're hoping that we can commence again before March to either find a new partner to work with the existing two, or to get someone else to take on work. So
You
there's a lot happening.
a lot.
It's a mouthful, I'm sure, but there's a lot happening.
I wish I had half of your memory. But you mentioned about relocation, upgrading the prison. And as my friend Eddie, he would always say, the prison sits on perhaps one of the best pieces of geography in Grenada. Are there any plans to relocate it?
I can't say relocate per se. I think what we're looking at, we've actually looked at other areas to see whether we can relocate the prison in its entirety. I was advised that it might have been land in Mardi Gras area. But I think after looking at it, the Commissioner of Prisons and so on advised that it may not be ideal and that it may not be large enough, because it's not just the building. We have to have recreational space. We have to have all of the ancillary buildings, the bakery, the farming, the recreational area for the inmates. So we are looking at still trying to have it relocated within the entire larger compound, but not obviously utilize the very old 17th or 18th century structure that still sits there. So whether there's a chance for that real estate to be converted into something else, we'll find out. But we are at the very early conceptual stages, obviously. And it's difficult to get money to build a prison. Nobody really wants to.
Nobody wants to invest
so.
in a prison.
And to be honest, we also want to get to the point where we have less and less people in prison as well. So we don't want the prison to be a badge of honor, for want of a better word. We want less and less persons to be in jail.
Got you. All right, folks. Yeah, we need to give the PM a break to take a sip of water, and then, of course, we come back.
As part of commemorating and celebrating CARICOM's Energy Month for the year 2025, I am happy that my ministry have been able to launch a flagship program for us, My Baby, the Solar for All. Solar for All is really and truly about bringing clean, reliable, renewable energy to low and middle income households, whereby we are able to help with the cutting down or the lowering of electricity bills and costs for these households. And what we have been able to do is twin it with some of the assistance that government already has in place. We have targeted in the first phase persons who are within the low income and middle, to some extent, strata, where the housing program underneath the Ministry of Social Development and Housing were able to give these recipients and beneficiaries a home that they can call theirs. And for those households, we have been able to step in to giving them the solar energy.
For the past 6 years, I've been going through some health problems, and we've been going through a lot because I was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer, and it's been tough. So we had to be renting and up and down and stuff, and then I go to the minister and she helped me out. Thank God. I appreciate it and everything, and she gave me on the housing project, put me on that, and then now we on the solar project.
Ultimately, what we want is to ensure that our homes are much more resilient, and that in the event that there is a hurricane, there is a storm, any other natural or tropical disasters, that our families and our household owners can bounce back almost immediately. So solar is the way, renewable energy is the way, and I'm happy that we're able to do this so that the people on the ground who we represent, who I represent, feels it and understands the importance of the ministry.
Welcome back again, our viewers and listeners, to DMs with PM, and it's just about time to get to your DMs. Let's see if we have our first question. Elizabeth Abigail Sampson, any updates on the upgrade of the Grenville bus terminal?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for the question. Yes, we are planning to, in fact, continue improving all of the bus terminals to a point where they become more pedestrian friendly. I can't give a specific updates as to whether a contractor has been selected or not as yet, so I could undertake to get that information and come back on a next episode or during the week to provide a more detailed update on this.
Okay. Naki C. Smith, what infrastructure development plans does the government have for the town of Grenville?
All right, thanks. Well, in relation to roads, we plan to, in fact, repave all of the roads within the town of Grenville this year. As you should be aware, I think just around the last elections, the then government had embarked upon a series of engagements to do sidewalks and so on throughout Grenville. That has actually, in some instances, led to more flooding. and has caused deterioration in the road even further. So we are going to redo all of the roads, as well as the Grenville commercial complex. Plans are on the way, and we hope that construction can start with that building as well during the second quarter of 2026 as well. So that is a joint venture between the government of Grenada and the Grenada Cooperative Bank, a public-private partnership to be able to redo that building that will house, for example, the Grenville library, as well as commercial spaces and government offices within Grenville. So those are two of the projects that we are working on currently for the town of Grenville itself.
Okay. We have another question from Ken Steele. What progress has been made towards rebuilding the jetty in Windward, Carriacou?
Hi Ken, I'm not sure if you saw pictures on, I think, my Instagram post on Sunday. Work has commenced on the Windward jetty in Carriacou. The piles have been removed and piling is taking place currently. I think the contractor indicated that they should have done at least 4 piles on Sunday. I think another 5 or so is planned for today and perhaps might have been completed. And the piling will continue. The concrete slabs are prefab, precast slabs. They're already in Trinidad. I've seen images of them. And so once the piling is done, we expect the concrete will come up and we should be able to have the jetty ready in relatively quick time. There was some delay because the initial barge that they wanted to send, which would have had aggregates, sand and so on, could not come through the channel because it was too large, and so they actually had to restart the entire plan, find a smaller barge which came from Montserrat, and that is what is currently on the site. I've also discussed with the Minister for Carriacou and Petit Martinique, ensuring that we can perhaps not just build a jetty, but have a building that can actually allow persons to refresh themselves while waiting to travel between Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and hopefully have some sort of passenger terminal space there as well. I think the property is private property, but it's derelict, and hopefully we can negotiate and acquire the property and build at least a mini ferry terminal, if I may call it that, to facilitate the travel between Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So work is ongoing, and we're hoping that by the middle of this year, the progress will be substantial.
And I think we have our final DM. Again from Naki Smith. How soon would the relocation and construction of the St. Giles Primary School take place?
All right, Naki, thank you for the question. I want to first say that we've had actually a debate about whether we needed to actually build the St. Giles School. And the reason for this is because we have the school in Munich, which is not too far away, that is substantially underpopulated. In fact, right now, all of St. Giles fits within the Munich school. The preliminary cost we have of building the St. Giles School is about $22 million. And so we had to have a debate as to whether it was good value for money to still go and build back the St. Giles School in light of the fact that all of St. Giles is accommodated within the Munich school. I'm smiling because I think over the last 2 weeks, the Minister of Education has pressed relentlessly for us to proceed with the St. Giles School. So where we are at, we're currently at the procurement stage before the procurement board, I think, to get permission for the concept designs and so on to be approved, and then for the bills of quantities, etc. So normally this process probably will take at least 6 months between getting the architecture drawings approved, getting the bills of quantities done, getting bids from the contractors, evaluating the contract bids, and then awarding a contract. Assuming a contract is awarded by the middle to the second quarter of 2026, then it probably will take at least a year to construct the school. But I want to emphasize that sometimes the government may make decisions that may not seem popular or people may not like, but we also have to bear in mind that we have limited funds. And in many of the primary schools in particular, we are having a situation where actually the numbers of persons in the schools are dwindling less and less. And sometimes it may make sense from a perspective of rationalizing our resources to close some of the schools and have everyone attend a different school. I know that is hard sometimes for people to hear, especially if they went to that school, if their parents went to that school, you know, the emotional tie and so on. But we also can't build, you know, and spend millions and millions of dollars and then have our schools underpopulated. We do know that in Munich there's some structural work that has to be done on the building as well. But the truth is that's one of the reasons why there's been a bit of a back and forth. But as the Minister of Education is the Minister of Education, and because also he's from St. Andrew, I think his persuasion has won over, and we will proceed with St. Giles.
All right, that's it for the DMs. Of course, we have to take another quick break, but when we come back, we will be in the streets.
It's like the water pure and clean It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
Welcome back, everyone. And of course, it's about time for us to take to the streets with Norris with your questions for the Prime Minister.
This week, we are switching up things on the streets. We are asking people questions. So come with me as we do that.
My name is Tyrone Buckmeyer. I am from the constituency of the Tongue of St. George. To be exact, I reside in River Road. I have to say I'm very impressed. I have taken keen notice of the infrastructural development in which the government of Grenada is investing, especially schools, roads, and other critical infrastructure like that. I welcome those developments. I appreciate the fact that the government has seen fit to invest in such infrastructure. I do want to say, as a word to the Prime Minister and his cabinet of ministers, don't rest on your laurels too much. Do not see this as so much as a gift to the country. This is part of the pact of governance. The government has been elected to office. The electorate has certain expectations, and these infrastructural developments are part of the expectations of the electorate. It is part of the pact that the government has made by saying, give us an opportunity to help with the development of this country, and we'll do these many things. I say, well done, good job, continue on that path. But as you seek to develop the country, we really need to urge that, I want to urge personally that the government looks at more investment in human capital. As the director of Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, I'm very concerned about the plight of our juveniles in conflict with the law in particular, young men in particular, but also young women who find themselves on the wrong side of the law and spend an inordinate amount of time trying to navigate the justice system without access to legal advice and representation. And that's one of the human capital investments I would like to see made in terms of providing support for these juveniles who many times are just misguided. They make a mistake, but end up trapped in a system that could actually work out to the detriment in the long term. So that's one investment other than infrastructure that I'd really like to urge the government in terms of human capital. There are other things I'd like to say, but I'll keep it short this time, and maybe I'll participate in the DMs with the PM in the future to ask a direct question or two. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't think there was a question, but I agree with the comments of Mr. Buckmeyer. We're talking about infrastructure, but I think you probably recognize I haven't actually done that a lot, because I too agree that, maybe it's just not in my nature to highlight what is the obvious and what the government is expected to do. The government is expected to provide public infrastructure. So when that happens, you probably don't see us talking a lot about it, because to me that is part of the course. It is normal, it is expected. But obviously we have a duty as well to inform the public about what is happening and to provide updates. So obviously this week we've taken a deliberate focus in highlighting, I think, a lot of the work that the Ministry of Infrastructure is doing or is supervising or is contracted to be done. So yes, physical infrastructure is important, and I want to thank him for recognizing that. But I agree with him that actually our focus has been on human capital to a large extent, and not so much on what I call built infrastructure. And it takes various forms. The Ministry of Social and Community Development has had parenting classes, because when we talk about our young men and juveniles, it starts at home. And most of them, if they probably came from a home setting where there was the confidence, the love, the care, the attention, the support, they would not find themselves having to have entanglements with the law, or if they did, would certainly learn the lesson and not find themselves there again. So the challenge we face is, and I want to emphasize that the government can't solve a lot of these challenges simply because it would not have the capacity or the tools to do so. We, as citizens of the country, parents, youth groups, social clubs, the churches, all of us are responsible for the type of human beings that we produce, the type of citizens we produce in Grenada. And so it's important for us to look at issues such as our tolerance, or patience, or communication skills, or lack thereof, or morality. What do we value and not value? Are we becoming more of a selfish society and less of a communal-based type society? Those are all things we have to work on if we want to get to a point. And I said that earlier, we want less people in prison, not more. You know, and also, there are things we criminalize which honestly should no longer be criminalized. And we also have to look at that because we should bear in mind that it's quite easy to convert someone into a criminal if the law says if you do X, it's a criminal act. And if it should not really be a criminal act, then we also have to pay attention to that. So our criminal code is very old. A lot of it is based on, in some instances, historical prejudices. Some of it is even based on religious and racist underpinnings that we also have to address. And so those are some of the, I think, the modernization of the society that has to take place. But I do agree, the human capital is important. That's why we invest so much in education. That's why we are investing so much in our youth groups, youth clubs, youth entrepreneurship. That's why we're forming youth economy. All of this is designed to make sure that at an early age we can address some of the challenges we face. Up to yesterday, the Minister of Education and his team and myself met with members of the private sector to make a pitch to them to support us in actually funding a complete revamping of literacy and numeracy at the primary school levels. The idea here is we recognize there's systemic challenges in literacy and numeracy, and if people can't read and write, and if they can't do basic math, they will have difficulties functioning in the society, and they're more likely to end up in trouble with the law because we recognize it starts very early in the first 10 years of a human being's life. So these are some of the issues we are working on, and as time goes on, we certainly would expect to see improvements in that area.
Okay. And I believe we have another DM from the street.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. So welcome to DMs on the Streets. All right. Do you see the pipes that are currently being laid by NAWASA as something good the government is doing?
Yes, absolutely. I think initially it's going to be a bit stressful, the traffic and everything. But overall, if you think of, people like in the valley, in the Calice area, traditionally they have always had a water supply issue, in particular in the dry season. So I think initially it's going to be stressful, but overall it's going to be a lot better for the people. So it's an investment. Everyone's going to be happier and have a better quality of life, I think. So I think it's a good initiative.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thank you,
man. Take care, man.
Well, Norris has switched it up a bit, and Norris has become the person asking the question. So I'm happy for the comments of the if I may say, caller, commenter. Then we do recognize obviously there's some inconvenience, but I think in the long run, everyone values the importance of the significant transformation in the infrastructure of NAWASA to be able to provide water, particularly to the south of the island, as that's where the bulk of the people are, that's where the bulk of the tourists are as well. And we have to be able to provide water, not just now, but in the future and the medium to long term. So that is what the project is designed to do. And again, I want to thank people for the patience and for the understanding with the inconvenience that the pipeline is causing, and will continue to cause for some time. But we are optimistic that we can get through, and that by the end of March, most of it will be complete, so that there could be some resumption of normalcy.
Okay. And we have our final DM from the street.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
My name is
afternoon.
Norris Francois. Welcome to DMs on the Streets. What's your name?
David Robertson.
All right, Mr. David, ask the Prime Minister your question.
Yeah, I would like to know, why is it that so many humps in the road where we need to slow down, Same color with the road. We are 50th anniversary, about 50% of the humps that across the road, same color with the road, or the paint fade out, and we celebrate, and then the next year we come and celebrate, and this is the next year coming again, and it's the same thing. I would like to see all humps, whether it's in the main road, eastern and western, or inside road, say like inside Hope City, or down inside Fort Tree, or in Gun Battle, Region Wharf, anyway, all about should be properly painted. I like to see that way, and I would like to see, by now, a white line in the middle of the road, right around the island, the main road, right around. That's the question I have for them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Robertson. Mr. Robertson, I agree with you completely. So you have a convert here. The type of painting that has been used on the roads is not the correct one, and that's the reason why they do not last correctly. We are in discussions with some of the contractors who are likely to be part of the finance, design, and build concept to actually get the right paint. I can't give you the technical term for the paint, but it's actually the type of paint that, for want of a better word, is an adhesive and actually sticks to the road, is reflective and doesn't simply wash away just from the wear and tear of vehicle use. So they've been using normal paint on the humps and on the roads, and hence the reason why after a month or 2 months the paint fades and disappears. So that is part of the modernization of the roads that has to happen. I actually also think that there are too many humps on the road. In fact, I have since instructed the Ministry of Infrastructure not to erect any humps on the roads unless I approve it, because we have to deal with fire trucks, we have to deal with ambulances, we have to deal with these huge trucks that are on the road. And yes, I appreciate that people see the humps as an attempt to mitigate speeding on the roads, but to be honest, there's so much traffic now, it's almost impossible to speed anywhere in Grenada, and the humps actually does have significant consequences for slowing down traffic in some instances, for damaging people's vehicles, because as you said, if the hump is the same color of the road, you are not going to see it. I've actually had the experience in Calavini, for example, where in the evening I passed up, there was no hump, and in the night we were coming back down and I was being driven, and we almost ran off the road because the officers didn't expect a hump in the road and literally drove over a hump, and I swear we went to heaven and back because of that. So we recognize that this is something, there are other ways to address the speeding and so on, but yes, all of the humps should be painted, but with proper paint so that they don't disappear after a month or two. And yes, having a median line so that people could know, which is left and which is right is something we also have to get to. But before we do so, we have to fix the roads because we can't put the paint down on poor quality roads.
Fantastic. All right, folks, that was it for your DMs from the street. We're getting ready to take your calls, but first a quick break and then we'll come right back.
Cinnamon, one of the signature designs of Project 500. This 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home spans 1,122 square feet, crafted for sustainable and modern living. The design features efficiency in wall, windows, and roof, engineered to reduce your overall electrical consumption by minimizing heat buildup. A cooler building on those hot days. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, which reduces water usage. Efficiency without sacrifices. With 3 spacious bedrooms, this design offers a retreat for all members of the family. With an open floor plan comprising of dining, living, kitchen, dedicated laundry, utility closet, water storage, solar panel, and parking for 2. And an area for outdoor home gardening. The Cinnamon balances functionality and style. At Project 500 is more than just building homes. It's about developing sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
Welcome back again, viewers and listeners to DMs with PM. Of course, it's about time to take some of your calls. The number 423-3104. I believe we already have a call online. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. This is the big German here. I want to be quick. I have 2 ideas for you. One, I want you to introduce like some of the big countries. If someone named Keith Mitchell and you want to put your name on your number plate, you can put it and you can pay $400 extra. That's a way of raising money for the country. The other one, I want to see you introduce that all the buildings and them in the cities, what they close to the sidewalk, they must take charge of the sidewalk and put them in charge of it so that that is their responsibility. So if they don't fix it, the government will fix it and then put a charge to them. And if they don't pay, they don't open the doors. The last one, Cuba have 50,000 prison that is closed down. Close the prison down, send everybody in the prison in Cuba and hire one of them prison. Build a new prison. And then they will come back. So anybody commit any crime now, you're going to Cuba. So I don't think a lot of them will want to go. And the last one is, I wanted to tell me when I'll get a prescription.
All right. Well, I'll answer the last one first. I'll make arrangements to make sure you get the prescription tomorrow. I think the idea of the number plates, the vanity number plates, is in fact a good one. and it's a good opportunity to potentially raise revenue. But of course, it could only be on one of the two because we still need to be able to properly identify the vehicles. But it's something I think that's worth exploring, and I think as we begin to move the licensing and registration of vehicles away from the police and under the Transport Commission as a civilian authority, there may be opportunities for that. The idea of the sidewalk is something that would need further discussion, because I don't know that I could tell a private entity they need to take care of public property, and if they don't do it, that they can't open their doors. But I certainly think there is an opportunity perhaps for collaboration between some of the, particularly I would say along areas like the Carenage, collaboration between the businesses and the public to help maintain the infrastructure, especially if it's directly in front of them. I'm not sure what to say about your suggestion on the prison. Citizens of Grenada can't be forcibly moved to another country. That would be against their own rights, and it's the practicality of doing something like that would be significantly challenged. But thank you nonetheless for the thought-provoking suggestion.
We have another caller online.
Good evening, Arona.
Good evening, caller. Welcome. Go right ahead and be as brief as possible, please.
Yes, good evening, Mr. PM.
Good evening.
My name is Desi, calling from Boston. I have two short, bold questions for you. Looking at you, I see no bags underneath your eyes. But thinking about the future of Grenada, does it keep you up at night? And my next question is, if you weren't Prime Minister today, what would you criticize the government for?
Thank you, Desi. Yes,
Thank you, Desi.
Your questions are bold. Thank you for them. Well, I don't know if it keeps me up at night. I think, you know, if you're a citizen of the country, you want your country to be successful. And in my case, now that I'm the Prime Minister, I'm probably more motivated to try and make the country successful. But I also have to appreciate that there's only very few things that I can control. And that basically starts with my own behavior. So my job is to try to do my best, to try to lead by example. And hopefully the rest will fall in place. But I think when I reflect on small developing countries like Grenada, when I reflect on the struggle of our ancestors, going all the way to how our ancestors were brought to the region, to the history of European colonization, to slavery, colonialism, neo-colonialism, the struggle for freedom, equal rights, the right to vote. In the case of women only got the right to vote a couple of decades ago. Our ancestors never gave up. They were in far poor conditions. They had significantly less material wealth. In many instances, until the 1970s, education was not widespread. It took the revolution to allow, in a sense, free education at the primary and secondary school level. Tertiary level education is still not easily accessible by most Grenadians, and yet still people persisted and they built the society. So if we could overcome those challenges, I have every confidence that going forward, Grenadians will continue to meet any challenge that is brought to them. So I'm saying all of this to say I'm, in a sense, relatively upbeat and optimistic that the future of Grenada will be in safe hands. I meet incredibly talented young Grenadians every day who I'm sure will work hard to continue developing the country. If I was not the Prime Minister, not a member of the government, what would I criticize the government about? I'm sure there are lots of things we can be critical about. Sometimes we probably don't give as much information about a lot of what is happening. That perhaps is a fair criticism. Sometimes things still take too long. There's still a lot of bureaucracy that we have to try and address. And the change management culture, we have to pay attention to actually ensuring that people understand why we're asking for the changes, and to try and get them to make it. I could give simple things. I'll give you a simple example. I'm saying we because I'm part of the government, I don't agree with it. I asked whether there was any rule, any law that says this has to be the case. And I was told no. And I've given instructions to the Cabinet Secretary to change it. But I'm sure we'll get people who will resist. They don't allow people to go to the hospital because they're wearing short pants or, what do you call it? Sleeveless.
Sleeveless.
Or they don't allow you to come into the ministry. And I've asked why. And no one could give me an explanation. And I've said, well, as far as I'm concerned, if someone leaves Sotez in a country where the average temperature is 30 degrees Celsius to come to get about paper or whatever it is they're coming to do, and you are telling them they can't come into the ministry because they're wearing a short pants, which world are we living in? And what is this rule designed to achieve? Like, what is the mischief? It's senseless. And you are talking bus fare, you are talking inconvenience, etc. And I've given instructions. Now, when I raised this at the last senior managers retreat, there was a resounding applause where everybody supported the idea. So my question is, why did it take me to ask this question? Why is it all senior managers together could not have said, well, this is not making any sense, and advocate for the change? And the public who is negatively impacted by this, why have they not advocated for the change? Why have they not protested? Why have they not written? And so sometimes we act as if somehow change comes from a miracle from above, but it's not, it's us. It's us talking, advocating for the things that are right and that make sense. So I'm hoping, so yes, this is a criticism of the government, because sometimes we all sit in the room, we all know something is not right, and we all walk around looking at each other, and no one is prepared to stand up and say, this isn't right. Let us actually begin the process of making the change. So I'm hoping, and I'm saying this publicly, if anybody is being stopped from entering the hospital or the ministerial complex or the government buildings because they're wearing a short pants or they're wearing a sleeveless, I want them to protest and indicate that the Prime Minister is saying publicly that is not a basis for refusing you entry to government services. So this is just an example of the kind of change management that we need, and the criticism I'm leveling at us, because we have to be able to do more of that as we go forward.
Maybe it's indicative of your style of leadership. We're more comfortable saying, yeah, yes, we totally were against it, but we're comfortable to say no now. Yes, no.
Well, I hope so. Yes, I mean, the whole idea is people should be able to speak up. I mean, it doesn't mean your view is right, and we have to always find the right balance. But if there is no, my view is why, the why. What are we trying to achieve? So if there are valid reasons and you can justify it, fine. But if it's just because it's traditional or we have this hypocritical notion about clothes, you know, then you don't have a valid reason, and the inconvenience you put through to other persons. So you could clearly have rules, and in my view, the rules should be stipulated. I don't expect people to come in with their swimsuit or see-through clothing or whatever you call it. But at the same time, I mean, average dress, in my view, should be acceptable, especially in very hot weather conditions.
Totally agree with you on that one. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead and be as brief as possible.
Good evening. Good evening, Prime Minister. Thank you for your response to my question last week. Your remarks gave me an opportunity to reflect on the benefits of repatriating to Grenada and the value of building a future at home without having to navigate some of the challenges often faced abroad, including racism and other forms of prejudice. I really appreciate the time as well for convening these engagements, which are an effective way to communicate the work of your administration and strengthen the dialogue with the Tri-Island community. My question today relates to land ownership in Grenada. We are seeing in several Caribbean nations, including Jamaica, increasing foreign acquisition of land that is raising concerns about long-term access and affordability for citizens. Grenada, by contrast, has taken a more deliberate approach. Could you speak to the policies and safeguards your government is putting in place to ensure that land ownership remains primarily in the hands of Grenadians rather than being driven by external interests? For example, some countries such as Tanzania restrict freehold ownership to nationals while allowing long-term leases for non-nationals. Is Grenada considering similar mechanisms to preserve national ownership while still encouraging investment?
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller, for the question. So some of the policies we've enacted, I think first, I can speak to lands owned by government. We've embarked upon a land regularization policy to make sure that Grenadians who either were issued with permission letters from previous governments of the past or allotment letters that allow them to buy and pay for land over an extended period of time, that we regularize their ownership by giving them the opportunity to complete the payments for the lands and to get their title deeds. This is impacting hundreds of Grenadians, and that is ongoing right now because it's important for people to actually own the land and to be able to utilize it to transfer it to the children should they die or in a will, or be able to use it to acquire mortgages, etc., to build, to fund education, etc. So this is something that's ongoing. We also took a strategic decision that some of the prime lands, particularly in the southern part of the island that are used for hotels and other commercial premises, should be leased and not sold. So for example, we bought back the freehold for the site that houses the Radisson Hotel. It was previously leasehold. The former administration actually sold it to a private developer, so we ended up in a situation where the tenant, which is the Radisson Hotel, was actually paying rent to a private citizen who became the freehold owner of the property. We reacquired that from the private citizen so that the state of Grenada is the landlord and will remain the landlord and the tenant remains there. So we've taken a policy that for prime lands, particularly in the south of the island, that we will only do it on a leasehold basis. The Kawana Bay site, for example, is another example. We settled the dispute there with the outgoing developer that commenced under the NNP administration, and we've entered into a deal with the Silver Sands Group where the intent is to lease the land to them so that they can develop it. So that's the second thing that we are doing. We also have an Aliens Landholding License Act that actually requires any non-Grenadian who wishes to buy land in Grenada to apply for a license to get the land. So it means in every case, the Cabinet of Grenada makes a determination as to whether or not it will grant permission for non-citizens to actually be able to buy land. And in most cases, the license has strict conditions that has to be followed by the non-citizens, and if they breach those conditions, the land is liable to forfeiture, and in fact, the land can be taken back and forfeited by the state. Additionally, even where persons own land as non-citizens and they die, and they wish to will that land to someone who's a non-citizen, they've got 12 months within which to apply for an alien license, and if they don't, they actually have to come to the government for an extension of time to do so. So we believe that we currently have sufficient restrictions and instruments, tools at our disposal to sufficiently address the right balance between driving foreign direct investment into the country and at the same time ensuring that our prime lands are protected and that citizens of Grenada, as well as the state of Grenada, have continued access to both prime lands as well as smaller lots for residential living, and to keep the balance between getting land or making land so expensive that the average citizen is not able to purchase or afford the lands. And I should also point out that's why we took the decision to sell the apartments that are part of the Chinese affordable housing complex, so that Grenadians actually get the opportunity to own the apartments, and so that in the future they can sell and will it and again use it as a basis for getting mortgages and so on.
Okay. We have another caller. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead and be as brief as possible.
Good evening, PM. Honorable PM, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. I can hear you.
I have two suggestions for the town of St. George. One is the old drill yard on Young Street. If it would be considered to be turned into a car park, because that is, to me, property that I knew was owned by the government of Grenada, can that be utilized by removing all the buildings on it, the old derelict buildings, and making it a car park? Because parking of vehicles in St. George's is a big problem. The other one is the building opposite to the RGPF headquarters on the Carenage. The corner building, it's a derelict building. It looks very bad. When the tourists come into the island and they see a building like that, it doesn't leave a good feeling. And so if we could acquire that, government can acquire that and use that for parking or for some allied service that the RGPF can use it for.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so thank you for the suggestions. In relation to the latter suggestion, in fact, when we had bought the building that was owned by Cable and Wireless, which is now the police headquarters, we actually had entered into discussions with the owners of the adjacent building that you referred to see whether there was a possibility for us coming to terms. That did not quite work out, and as a result, the building is still as it is. It's important to point out those are private properties, and that the government simply can't do anything on them without either permission or being able to acquire them. The drill yard actually is not currently owned by the government, strictly speaking. It's owned by the National Insurance Scheme. So too the old St. James Hotel, so too the entire Ministry of Education building. The Cabinet recently took a decision that we will negotiate with the NIS to buy back a number of properties that were sold to the NIS, I think under the former NDC administration, because we believe these are strategic assets that should remain in the hands of the state. The truth is all of St. George's needs a complete, total upgrade and remodeling, and we think if we take a piecemeal ad hoc approach, we would lose the beauty of St. George's. That is part of the reason why we want to be able to buy back all of those buildings and have a phased planned remodeling and renovation of the entire tongue of St. George. This is going to cost probably billions of dollars because the tongue of St. George was not built overnight. But if we start with the financial complex, which is owned by the government and in need of repairs, the public library building, which is immediately next door, if you look at those four buildings from the sea, you would understand the symmetry and the beauty of them. So I think we want to start there with the renovations and then gradually build up all the way through the other areas, including the old St. James building. Because we're renovating the fort, we think that's sort of like the centerpiece of the renovation plans. It is going to cost millions, so we're going to have to have some sort of joint venture with the private sector to allow them to bring in the capital, to allow them to have long leases for the spaces, and to agree on the style and the form of remodeling, because we really do want to keep the architectural integrity of the Town of St. George to, in a sense, respect our ancestors and the built heritage that comes with the Town of St. George. So we do appreciate parking is a challenge, but it will be a discussion as to where and how we create parking in the Town of St. George while at the same time preserving the architectural integrity of the city.
And I think we have our final caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Good evening to the host and the PM. Yes, I and some of the citizens of this country hope that we're looking out for your safety and security. We think you should step up on that because we don't want to know that you've been kidnapped. And second, we need to have a committee. Could you look into putting up a committee to look into the SEED program? Because we also think that thing really needs a revamping. A lot of seniors and disabled people is falling through the cracks when it comes to the jump, the hurdles you have to go through. It's strange that you should call it a jump because there's a lot of bureaucracy. Could you look into that for the committee, please?
Okay. Thank you, caller.
Right. Well, thank you, caller. Maybe the caller is clairvoyant. Actually, in the cabinet meeting yesterday, there was a lengthy presentation about the SEED program and a new and upgraded tool to assess who goes on and who does not go on to the program, as well as to make sure that we can address some of the issues that he's raised, specifically the targeting of more senior citizens, persons with disabilities, etc., etc. So it is a work in progress. I expect we'll hear more of it in the several coming weeks from the Minister of Social and Community Development as we're able to address this. I want to say this because I think it's important for us to talk about the kind of society that we want. I actually want a society where the office of the Prime Minister doesn't have to worry, and whoever holds that office worry about his safety or security. When I became Prime Minister the night, there was so much security, I was completely taken aback. And the following day, gave my own view as to what I think should be appropriate. I actually want, as the Prime Minister, to be able to walk around freely, to be able to interact with all Grenadians, and to not be bothered or concerned about my safety and security. And I think largely that's the kind of society we have, and largely that's the kind of society I want to preserve, so that the office is respected, but at the end of the individuals who hold that office don't have to worry about their safety or their security. And that is largely going to come from the kind of society we have. If we have a peaceful society, if we have a prospering society, then office holders, whether they're judges, politicians, or senior public servants, or other persons with any sort of major position in the country, should feel confident that they can go about their business safely. So I'm quite confident and comfortable with the level of security and safety that I have, and I think the Grenadian people are my security.
And that's about all the time we have with you this evening. As always, an absolute pleasure taking care of you for this past hour. Thank you so much for the calls. Thank you so much for the questions. And of course, remember, you can join us every Tuesday right here. But before we leave, PM, any final words before we go?
Yes, as we wrapping up the month of January, it already shows how time flies by. We obviously entering into the preparations and climax to mark our 52nd anniversary of independence. So I think it's important for us, again, if ever we doubt or question the viability, the validity of the fact that we're an independent nation, I think more than ever the last year has demonstrated, in a sense, the wisdom and the brilliance and the foresight and the resilience of our ancestors in getting us to a point where, as a small developing country, we became an independent country. I always reiterate that there are countries within our hemisphere that are not independent, where people don't have the freedom to choose their government, don't have the freedom to associate with a particular identity, and therefore we should not take our independence for granted, because as we can see, there are in fact attempts to conquest and colonize parts of the world still taking place right before our eyes. So it's important for us to understand that patriotism and nationalism is not just the red, yellow, and the green and the waving of the flag, but to ensure that we invest in ourselves to build the resilience, to build economic success, to build the social cohesion that is required to keep our unique identity and to keep our country going. So I hope we all use this period to reflect and to become more conscious citizens, not only in thought, but indeed to care a little more for our neighbors, to help build the society, to help build ourselves, to build our families, and to take care of each other.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again to our partner stations, Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, and Vibes FM. To the entire technical team, thank you so very much. And of course, we hope to see you again next Tuesday, same time, same place. Before we go, though, there's one more thing we want to leave you with, and that is an progress update on the St. David's Catholic Secondary School. So we'll leave you with that. And of course, we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Have a good evening, everyone.
On July 7th, 2025, Grenada marked a major milestone in the education transformation with the groundbreaking of the new St. David's Catholic Secondary School in Malmount, St. David. This modern, climate-resilient campus, set on 4 acres, will feature advanced science and computer labs, administrative offices, and outdoor recreational spaces. Designed with sustainability in mind, the project includes enhanced drainage, upgraded water treatment systems, and resilient construction standards to ensure longevity for generations to come. Set on 4 acres, the school will comprise 3 main buildings, 2 with 3 stories and 1 with 2 stories, along with a hard court and a playing field for sports and recreational activities. The Ministry of Infrastructure is pleased to report that this project, valued at EC $40.68 million, is progressing ahead of schedule. All earthworks have been finished, substructure works are at 65% complete, and construction of retaining walls has begun. In the coming months, work will advance to the 2nd story, and we will see the completion of all retaining walls. The project currently employs 60 people, with 75% coming from communities in St. David. And as this project rises, so does the promise of opportunity, opening new doors for every student who will walk through these walls. The new St. David's Catholic Secondary School is more than a building. It is an investment in knowledge, in community, and in the bright future we are building together.